and I knew that he was making me mad simply to make me lose control of my blanket. I couldn't stop it, so I let out my anger by thinking, "You think you are clever because you're slipping through sly little loopholes, Joseph. I'm going to show you how neat it is to get everything I want, including your grudging admission of defeat, by the process of making use of the laws and rules that work in my favor." "You're a wise guy," he hurled back at me. "I'm real clever, Barcelona, and I'm big enough to face you, even though Phil Howland, the Greek, and Chicago Charlie make like cold clams at the mention of your name. Why, you punk—" "Go away, Barcelona. Go away before I make up my mind to make you eat it." I turned to Nora and regarded her charms and attractions, both physical and mental, with open and glowing admiration. It had the precalculated result, and it wouldn't have been a whit different if I'd filed a declaration of intent and forced her to read it first. It even satisfied my ambient curiosity about what a telepath grinding of the teeth in frustrated anger would transmit as. And when it managed to occur to an unemployed thought center of my brain that the lines of battle were soft and sweetly curved indeed, Joseph Barcelona couldn't stand it any more. He just gave a mental sigh and signaled for the noisemakers to shut him off from contact. Derby Day, the first Saturday in May, dawned warm and clear with a fast dry track forecast for post time. The doorbell woke me up, and I dredged my apartment to identify Nora fiddling in my 2-bit kitchen with ham and eggs. Outside, it was Lieutenant Delancey practicing kinematics by pressing the button with a levitated pencil instead of shoving on the thing directly. I'd changed the combination on the mine warden at Nora's suggestion. As I struggled out of bed, Nora flashed, "You get it, Wally," at me. She was busy manipulating the ham slicer and the coffee percolator and floating more eggs from the refrigerator. The invitation and the acceptance for and of breakfast was still floating in the mental atmosphere heavy enough to smell the coffee. I replied to both of them. "If he can't get in, let him go hungry." Lieutenant Delancey manipulated the door after I'd reset the mine warden for him. He came in with a loud verbal greeting that Nora answered by a call from the kitchen. I couldn't hear them because I was in the shower by that time. However, I did ask, "What gives, Lieutenant?" "It's Derby Day." "Yeah, so what?" "Going to watch it from here?" he thought incredulously. "Why not? Be a big jam down there." "I've a box," he said. "No, how?" "Both the Derby Association and the Chicago Police Force have assigned me to protect you from the evil doings of sinners," he said with a chuckle, "and I suggested that the best way of keeping an official eye on you was to visit you at the scene of the alleged intended crime, and to serve that end they provided me with a box where we can all be together." I tossed. "And if we do not elect to go to Kentucky?" He chuckled again. "Then I shall have to arrest you." "For what?" "There is an old law in the city statute that declares something called massive cohabitation to be illegal. You have been naughty, Wally." Nora exploded. "We have not," she cried. Lieutenant Delancey laughed like a stage villain. "The law I mention," he said after a bit of belly laughing, "was passed long, long ago, before telepathy and perception were available to provide the truth. At that time, the law took the stand that any unmarried couple living together would take advantage of their unchaperoned freedom, and if this state of cohabitation went on for a considerable length of time, called massive, but don't ask me to justify the term, the probability of their taking pleasure in one another's company approached a 100% positive probability. Now this law was never amended by the Review Act, hence the fact that you have been chastely occupying separate chambers has nothing to do with the letter of the law that says simply that it is not lawful for an unmarried couple to live under the same unchaperoned roof. I came out of the shower, toweling myself and manipulating a selection of clean clothing out of the closet of my bedroom. "The law," I observed, "is administered by the intent of the law and not by the letter, isn't it?" "Oh, sure," he said, "but I'm not qualified to interpret the law. I'll arrest you and bring you to trial, and then it's up to some judge to rule upon your purity and innocence of criminal intent, and freedom from moral taint or turpitude. Maybe take weeks, you know." "And what's the alternative?" I grunted. "Flight," he said in a sinister tone, as I came out of my bedroom putting the last finishes on my necktie. "Flight away from the jurisdiction of the law that proposes to warp the meaning of the law to accomplish its own ends." "And you?" "My duty," he grinned, "is to pursue you." "In which case," observed Nora Taylor, "we might as well fly together and save both time and money." "That is why I have my personal sky buggy all ready to go instead of requisitioning an official vehicle," he said. He scooped a fork full of eggs and said, "You're a fool, Wally. The lady can cook." I chuckled. "And what would happen if I hauled off and married her?" "You mean right here and now?" "Yeah." "Sorry. I have to restrain you. You see, you couldn't get a legal license nor go through any of the other legal activities, ergo there would be a prima facie illegality about some part of the ceremony. Without being definite as to which phase, I would find it my duty to restrain you from indulging in any act the consummation of which would be illegal." Nora said in a pseudo-petulant tone, "I've been damned with very faint praise." "How so?" "Wally Wilson has just said that he'd rather marry me than go to the Kentucky Derby with you." Lieutenant Delancey said, "I urge both of you to come along. You see, my box is also being occupied by an old friend of yours. I managed to talk him into joining us, and with reluctance he consented." "I'm a mind reader," I said. "Our friend's name is Joseph Barcelona?" As they say on the space radio, "Aye, firm, over and out." Barcelona was there with two of his boys. Watching them were four ununiformed officers. Nora and I and the lieutenant were joined later by Gimpy Gordon, who might have been radiating childlike wonder and a circus air of excitement at actually being at the Derby. He might have been. No one could cut through the constant, maddening mental blah 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 that was being churned out by Barcelona's noisemakers. He greeted me curtly, eyed Nora hungrily. He said, "You look pretty confident, Wilson." "I can't lose," I said. "No? Frankly, I don't see how you can win." I smiled. "Without mentioning any names, Joseph, I feel confident that the final outcome of this racing contest will be just as you want it to be. I shall ask that no credit be given me, although I shall be greatly admired by our mutual friend, Miss Nora Taylor, who will think that I am truly wonderful for making you happy. And it is more than likely that she may marry me once I have shown you, and she, and Lieutenant Delancey, that I am a law-abiding citizen as well as a man who values friendship enough to do as his old pal Joe Barcelona desires." "It's going to be one of the neatest tricks of the week," he said. "It will be done by the proper application of laws," I said modestly. Behind us, Gimpy Gordon light-fingered a $50 out of Delancey's pocket and was attracting the attention of a hot-dog peddler by waving his program. Some folks nearby were eyeing Barcelona's noisemakers angrily, but making very little visible protest once they identified him. Nora was reading her program and underlining some horses. The whole place began to grow into a strange, excited silence as the track board began to go up. It was to be a 9-horse race, and at the top of the list were three, count 'em, three, odds-on favorites. First, Murdoch's Horde, 1-2. Second, Mayhew's Jet, 3-5. Johnny Brack, 5-7. Piper's Son, 8-5. Daymare, 3-1. Helen O'Loy, 8-1. And then, of course, there were our three mud turtles, which must have been entered by someone who thought that the Kentucky Derby was a claiming race, and who hoped that the Lepage's glue people would make a bid for the 3 mounds of thoroughbred horseflesh that dropped dead in the backstretch. Flying Heels, 100-1. Moonbeam, 250-1. Lady Grace, 500-1. The rack hadn't hit the top of the slide before there was a sort of mass movement towards the mutual windows. The ones who didn't go in person tried to hurl betting thoughts in the hope of getting there early, and failing this, they arose and followed the crowd.